This strike sent the Kremlin into a frenzy and made Putin himself start issuing threats. And no, we're not talking about another oil refinery or ammunition depot. It's much more interesting than that. In Donetsk, a place with a very peculiar name was blown up. The occupiers themselves affectionately called it the brothel. But no, there were no girls there. That's where they hid those whom the Kremlin fears losing the most. The elite of Russia's drone forces and Rubicon, the most expensive and top-secret project of the Russian Ministry of Defense. One strike and the nest of the Kremlin's favorites, along with the leadership of the Somali battalion, was shut down forever. Why is the elimination of this unit more painful for Russia than the loss of a dozen tanks? Why are the occupiers physically unable to hide their bases from Ukrainian drones? And how did Russian propaganda itself give away the coordinates of its own elite? Today, we'll break down what really happened in Donetsk, which other Russian training grounds have been burning lately, and why this strike has the Kremlin so inflamed. Like and subscribe. Let's get started. When it comes to Russian logic, you always feel like giving a standing ovation. I mean, how else can you explain the brilliant idea of gathering the entire cream of their drone elite into one Donetsk dump with the poetic name Bordel? It was there on the night of June 16th that the guys from the 9th Battalion Kairos of the 414th Brigade Magyar's Birds dropped by for a visit. Instead of a cultural program, it turned into a grand disco with fireworks where in a single moment the Somali units, the super-secret Rubicon, and the top brass of the 9th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the 51st Army were all packed together. This epic gathering of young and not-so-young naturalists was officially reported by the commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Magyar Brovdi, who backed up his words with some vivid footage to boot.
All the entrances all around to every building, here nobody gives a damn. There, the Somalis are firing, the 2nd Battalion's ammo is going off. Well, it's still unclear with those guys. Well, with Rubicon, well, there are some flashes there too. And for now, basically, we can't even get around the 9-story building. It's fucked up there. The dark ones basically hit us at every entrance. All the ammo is going off everywhere nearby, basically. We don't even know the escape routes yet.
Now let's figure out why the appearance of these two brands in one obituary is already a major event. Somali is a formation with a long trail and an openly dirty past, which crawled into the light back in 2014 from pro-Russian armed gangs in Donbass. A kind of old guard that has been marinating in the occupation of Donetsk from the very beginning. But suddenly, right next to them, appeared Rubicon, a character of a completely different caliber. It was created during the full-scale invasion as the main super-technological center for procurement, training, and combat deployment of drones. Ukrainian specialized analysts and volunteers, including Maria Berlinska, without any unnecessary courtesies, call Rubicon perhaps the best technological brain of the entire Russian Ministry of Defense. And note, these are not compliments from self-admiring Russians, but a sober assessment from people who fight them every day. How much trouble did this group cause to our positions? According to Ukrainian military data, on certain sections of the front line, these drone gurus managed within a week to wipe out up to 70% of the unmanned positions of an entire brigade of ours. So what we're dealing with here is not some made-up media scare story, but an organization that could genuinely tip the scales at the front. And that's exactly why Rubicon has been a regular feature on our aviation target list for almost the entire past year, with the record of strikes against it resembling a chronicle of systematic dismantling. In August 2025, their UAV command post in Donetsk region took a significant hit. In November of the same year, the festivities first reached Rubicon's Avdiivka headquarters, and a few weeks later, our general staff dealt with their sizable drone stockpile. In March 2026, Special Operations Forces fighters, using long-range drones, paid a visit to the base of this secret center right in Donetsk. In April, Rubicon's location in the same Donetsk region was hit again. At least 6 domestic drone strikes carried out a total incineration of warehouse stockpiles there. But the most amusing act of this ballet took place in Starobilsk. On the night of May 22nd, the defense forces sent a fiery greeting to the headquarters of one of Rubicon's units in the area of the occupied city in Luhansk region. The level of hysteria after this strike pierced the upper layers of the atmosphere. The event was personally commented on by Putin, who, as usual, began to stomp his feet and threatened terrible revenge. And Russian media rushed to spin tales about how Ukrainians allegedly shell only peaceful homes. And this story took on new colors just a few days ago. The official voice of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, suddenly remembered Starobilsk and started up the old tune again, claiming that some civilian college there came under fire. However, there is a nuance. Your military command made it clear from the very first minute that the target was specifically the Rubicon headquarters, whose pilots regularly terrorized Ukrainian civilian sites. In other words, a month after publishing its own list, Russia is now hastily trying to rewrite the script, repainting a military facility as a peaceful college in order to squeeze at least a drop of sympathy from the world. As analysts note, such an outcry at the highest Kremlin level is not raised over routine losses, which means the strike hit exactly where it should, and it hurt a lot. By the way, Russia tried to pull a similar trick just recently, disguising military targets as kindergartens or buses. On June 17th, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine had to officially debunk yet another fake, this time claiming that a Ukrainian drone allegedly struck a bus carrying a children's football team in the Bryansk region. Our military dryly emphasized that at that time they had not launched any drones in that direction at all, calling it a clumsy provocation by the Kremlin. There's an ironclad pattern. If the Russians have really been hurt, expect proud silence, not a wave of urgent fakes, fabrications. And so, after a year of such methodical hunting, on June 16th, Rubicon and Somali decide to have a romantic meeting at one of Donetsk's hubs, where they are both hit by a single, precise strike. This is definitely not luck or a random coincidence. This is systematic, painstaking work that simply had to end with such a finale. Now let's recall the second resident of this Donetsk den, the Somali battalion, whose biography is much longer and significantly dirtier. This gang came into being back on October 12, 2014, at the height of the battles for Ilovaisk, modestly starting out as a separate company. The unit got its name from its first leader, Mikhailo Tolstik, known as Givi. He himself, without any false modesty, explained that there is constant war in Somalia too, so the parallels are obvious. This group managed to make a name for themselves near Sloviansk in Ilovaisk during the assault and siege of Donetsk airport in the fall of 2014, and in 2017 they crawled up to Avdiivka. However, in February 2017, Givi's career came to an abrupt end right in his office in Makivka. According to the official version, the premises underwent an unscheduled test drive of the Shmel flamethrower. After that, the battalion was named in honor of the eliminated commander and placed directly under the so-called 1st Army Corps of the DPR. And starting from January 1st, 2023, all this Donbas amateur activity was officially incorporated into the regular Russian ground forces as a separate Guards motorized rifle assault battalion. In other words, the former bandit structure de facto and de jure became just another cog in the official Russian army. If you look at the bigger picture, the Donetsk hub is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Our drone forces are now engaged in much more than just hunting down isolated tanks or frightened infantrymen in the trenches. At the same time, the reactions on the ground always add a certain flavor. Residents of Donetsk and Mariupol who are forced to live under occupation later actively discuss the nighttime special effects in their closed chats, along with the sudden blackouts and loss of communication that, for some reason, always accompany such precise interceptions. The occupation authorities themselves played dumb, at most airing the sacred phrase that the air defense worked, while shyly keeping silent about what exactly was hit and where. One of the recent examples of such successful air defense work is the Vostochny training ground in the occupied part of Zaporizhzhia. On the night of June 12th, our drone operators paid a visit precisely when 3 different Russian units were undergoing basic training there. A week earlier, on May 30th, the Primorsky Posad training ground in the same Zaporizhzhia direction came under attack. There, our guys confirmed the successful dismantling of enemy shelters, that is, the very burrows where the occupiers tried to hide their bodies between training sessions. And a little earlier, in May, unmanned systems forces made a spectacular strike on a drone operator training center in temporarily occupied Krystalny in the Luhansk region, about 90 kilometers from the front line. Here, it's worth emphasizing why drone operator schools have become the main target lately. Modern warfare is a contest not of hardware, but of brains and skilled hands, those who can control a drone under electronic warfare, maneuver under artillery fire, and spot enemy positions. Russia has set up these centers near the front purely out of greed. This way, it's easier and faster to bring in fresh cannon fodder without long journeys from the depths of their vast homeland. But it is precisely this proximity to the front line, which seemed to the Russians like a brilliant logistical move, that has turned their centers into easy prey for our long-range drones. The occupiers have trapped themselves. Keeping bases far away is expensive and time-consuming, while keeping them close guarantees they'll get hit. And judging by the regular flashes on the horizon, our drone forces are making full use of this opportunity. It's logical here to answer the question that's probably on your mind. How often does this kind of thing actually happen on a regular basis? Is this a systematic effort or just isolated actions for flashy headlines? The numbers put everything into perspective. In just 1 year, from June 2025 to May 2026, Ukrainian drones eliminated or sent to hospitals 302,000 enemy personnel.
Wow, that's honestly incredible. They've completely taken control of the skies. What happens next? When they ask about ammunition supply, you need to explain that today, as soon as they left Donetsk, there was a strike. That's right, the ammo is being blown up. The entire road there is under drone control. This 9-story building, the 9th floor, was on fire apparently.
That's the story about the Donetsk brothel. If you found this analysis interesting, hit like and subscribe to the channel. It motivates us to create even more quality content. See you in the next episode.